So we became known as the Bad Kids Collective. Uh, it's kind of a long story.
Do you remember when times were easy? Imagination and conversations, finding fun and make believing we were soldiers and witches, children of the scene.
I'm Sonnie. I'm a performance artist, singer, dreamer, shit stir. I grew up in Huntington, Utah. It's a coal mining town of approximately 1,200 people. As a person wanting to get out, the rest of the world seemed really scary to me at the time, and so Salt Lake was the nearest big place, and so this is where I decided to go, and then I just never left. I feel like I moved here because I was running away from something. I didn't really ever feel like I fit in where I grew up, and so I moved here hoping that I would find a sense of community, and that's not what happened right out the gate. I experienced a lot of the same thing from the gay community as I was experiencing being gay in a small town. It was there, the problem was that I was queer, and then here, the problem was that I was too weird for the gay community. And I realized pretty quickly that there's this obsession with heteronormativity and blending in, and for gay males, there's a really heavy focus on acting like you're straight. And so I felt a lot of hopelessness initially because I just thought I don't belong anywhere. When I very first started dressing in drag and hanging out with this specific group of people, they had all these really specific standards of wearing padding and doing your makeup a certain way and having a certain type of hair and always wearing heels that are a certain height, and it was just very regimented and it was just like I said, a repetition of things that I was trying so hard to get away from. I didn't like the rigidness of living somewhere that was so religious. I didn't like being told that I was too feminine and, not fitting in amongst gay people. And then I wasn't fitting in with these people that I thought initially were my people. And so I pushed the boundaries as far as I could by doing things right before I was going to go on stage, I would take off my high heels and put on Converse boots. And I had to do it in a way that was really sneaky, because if the person that was running the show saw that I wasn't wearing heels, I wouldn't be allowed to perform. Artist collective that my friends and I created gained enough momentum and enough members and enough visibility that we showed so many people that there is a much freer, more inviting environment that you can express yourself in, that those other environments just seem that much more unwelcoming because now there's something different to compare it to. I decided to do the Miss City Weekly pageant because I saw it being marketed as something that was more embracing of the alternative. And so that's where I met a person named Willard and Lamia, who were both original parts of the Bad Kids Collective. Klaus was there with me in the dressing room helping me, and he was also an integral part of the beginning stages of this all. So we met for coffee just a couple days after the show, and a coworker of mine at the time was a bar manager at the Paper Moon, which is a lesbian bar that no longer exists. And I was just telling her about what happened, and she told me I should come do a show there. It was a place, it was a stage, it was somewhere that we could express ourselves, and so we decided to make it a fundraiser, and we put together this event, and there were a couple people there that I really valued in the community who I think saw early on that we were doing something that was going to cause a stir. And we got invited to perform on this Thursday night that's called Dance Evolution. That's very mixed punk crowd. That's really everyone is welcome. It's just all about going there and dancing and having a good time. But it was definitely not penned as like a gay night. And that's where we realized that we belonged, was this place where there were no labels involved. We were just doing us, and the people there were really weirded out, but they loved it because it was weird. The Bad Kids Collective, through time, became a large group of artists ranging from DJs to set designers. There were drag queens, there were singers, there were poets, there were musicians. Ultimately, it was like a really just twisted cabaret of like, come one, come all, express yourself, with a definite emphasis on queerness. I think that the Bad Kids was kind of circusy sometimes. I think that sometimes it was just like almost scary. There were elements of horror that kind of popped in here and there. There was a lot of fake blood, a lot of makeup, a lot of glitter, a lot of confetti, a lot of politics. It was there to push people's buttons. But anything that was going on locally or politically, or if there was ever a major thing that the Mormon church did that upset the gay community, you would see it on the stage. There was a little bit of everything happening. There was, some people were, depending on where they were at in their journey as performers, some people were really angry, and then some people were kind of so far past all of that we were just like, how can we take the audience somewhere? The parties were called Six, and the whole purpose behind them was to take people to a place of you're using all of your senses all at once, and then you're transcending. We realized at some point that the show just wasn't enough anymore, and so that was the goal, was to give people this escape from reality that would stimulate them in more ways than just seeing something. So they're seeing something, they're smelling something, they're tasting something, they're hearing something. I just started to see people being really caught up in all of their apps and their meetup apps, and their people's way of communicating with each other was very detached. And creating a type of event where people kind of have to be engaged, you can't capture that on a cell phone. People could see footage of one of those parties and think it looked really cool. But if you weren't there, you weren't being immersed with all of that magic. And I definitely think that perhaps part of why it all kind of came to an end is because none of us went into the whole thing with the mentality of we're going to be these really great, wholesome, strong role models and teachers. I think we tried. There was a period of time where I was working with youth at the Pride Center and teaching self-expression workshops. We were teaching basic makeup stuff for young kids who were thinking about transitioning or even just experimenting with their identities. And it felt really heavy. I think that there was definitely a time period where I felt a sense of pride and excitement, knowing that we could have an impact on people. And we saw that there were all these young people that were so interested, and the two core people, we had our own falling out, and when we stopped talking, it ended. I think through being part of such an interesting, queer, weird community, I was able to find my own personal identity just as a human being, separate from the artist, the character that I created, that I lived as for years, taught me who I really am. And I think before that, I was trying to conform. And so I think the lasting impact of the Bad Kids Collective for me was that I was able to finally just look at myself and see, like, Cartel, this character that I was living as, is not separate from me. There was definitely an identity crisis for a really long time for me, where it was like she was the thing that people liked and wanted and loved, and I was not. And I think that self-love is what I was able to take from it. As totally Lifetime movie cheeseball as that sounds, I really learned how to want to be alive.
Once found home at this watering hole, bodies all around me dancing so slow, grinding teeth, eyes to drinks from Halloween. Water is the only thing keeping me from drowning. Thought I'd come back to this place and try to gather missing things without fragmented delusions crowding the space in front of me. In a place where I found myself, got lost as hell, becoming someone else. I needed